For thousands of years, people have called beer liquid bread. And yeah, that makes sense. But what if I told you that in just the last century, this simple drink has been at the center of huge corporate wars, it's fueled a full on cultural rebellion, and it's even become a form of art? Well, today we're pulling back the tap on the absolutely incredible story of modern beer.
All right, so let's jump right in. I want you to think about the beer in your hand, or the last beer you had. What do you think is in there? Well, here's a little secret. It's mostly water. Seriously, we're talking over 90%. I know, sounds kind of boring, right? But wait a second, because in that other 10%, oh man, that's where all the magic happens. That's where we find the soul of beer. It tells this amazing story of science, big business, a little bit of rebellion, and just incredible flavor. So the real question is, what's actually hiding in that last little bit? What's the story it's trying to tell us?
Okay, so to really crack the code of that 10%, we've got to meet the four main characters of this story. These are the absolute fundamental building blocks of pretty much every single beer ever made. I'm talking from what the ancient Egyptians were brewing all the way to that fancy IPA you might have had last night.
So first up, we've got water. And I know, we just said it's most of the beer, but don't let its simplicity fool you. Think of water as the brewer's canvas. The specific minerals in it, the chemistry, that's what dictates whether a beer is going to be sharp and bitter or soft and malty. It's a total game changer.
All right, next up, malts. This is basically the heart and body of the beer. It's what gives it that substance, its color, and you can think of it as the fuel. It's the food for our next ingredient, which we'll get to in just a sec. And now for what many people call the soul of beer, hops. These little green cones are the brewer's secret weapon, for sure. They provide that bitterness that balances out the sweetness from the malt, and they are responsible for thousands, literally thousands of potential aromas, from bright and citrusy to deep and piney. Oh, and as a bonus, they actually help keep the beer from going bad. And finally, we get to the real magic, yeast. This is a living thing, a tiny single-celled organism, and you could say it's the actual brewer. It's a little workhorse that eats up all those sugars from the malt and in return gives us alcohol and all that lovely carbonation. It's like a tiny flavor-making engine. So there you have it. Water, malt, hops, and yeast are four ingredients. But how do they go from just being a list of things to becoming the delicious beer in your glass? Well, it's part cooking, part science, and honestly, a little bit of magic. Let's break down the process. Basically, it boils down to four key steps. First, brewers make a kind of sugary tea out of the greens. That's called mashing. Then, they boil that liquid with hops to get that bitterness in there and make sure everything's sterile. After that cools down, they add the yeast and pretty much let it have a feast on all those sugars. And finally, they just let the beer mature or chill out so all those flavors can come together and get just right. It's a pretty cool journey of transformation from a simple grain to a finished glass. Okay, so now I want you to take that whole process we just talked about and imagine scaling it up. I mean, way, way up to an industrial, massive level. That's exactly what a handful of incredibly ambitious families did. And by doing so, they didn't just make beer, they built empires. Welcome to the era of the beer barons. And when we say larger than life, we mean it. Take Gussie Busch, the guy who ran Anheuser-Busch. This man was an absolute character. He had this custom bus he called his land yacht. And get this, he used to entertain himself by taking a shower in it while the bus was cruising down Fifth Avenue. I mean, can you imagine? That's the level of swagger we're dealing with here. So for most of the 20th century, the Busch family basically ruled the American beer world. They were untouchable. But then in the 1970s, a real challenger stepped into the ring, Miller Brewing. And that kicked off what everyone called the Beer Wars, a massive battle for market dominance that went on for decades. And then, in a twist nobody saw coming, the great Anheuser-Busch empire was acquired by a foreign company in 2008, bringing a century of family leadership to a stunning end. But even while they were the king of the hill, the cracks were definitely starting to show. The perception was that Anheuser-Busch was getting, well, a little arrogant, maybe even complacent. Forbes magazine called them out on it. And when a giant gets a little lazy, it always, always opens the door for something new, something completely different to sneak in. See, while all the big guys were busy throwing money at marketing and fighting each other, a quiet little revolution was brewing.
Literally, it was happening in garages and basements all across the country. It was just a bunch of rebels, really, who were sick and tired of the same old light lager. They wanted flavor, they wanted variety, and they were about to take on the Goliaths of the industry.
So, did it work? Did they succeed? Oh yeah, you bet they did. Today, right now, there are approximately 10,000 craft breweries operating in the United States. Let that sink in. 10,000. That's not a small movement, that's a full-blown revolution. And it all started because a few people just wanted to drink a better beer. So, what was this whole movement really about? At its heart, it was an antidote to mass production, to a world where everything was starting to feel the same. Craft beer was a way of saying no thanks to all that. It was a vote for something authentic, something with a story, something with a soul.
I mean, you really couldn't find two more different philosophies. On one hand, you have big beer, which is all about consistency, mass marketing, and, let's be honest, financial growth. On the other hand, you have craft beer, which is all about variety, local community, and collaboration. It's about making something special, not just something that sells.
And the physical heart of this whole movement, it's the brewery tap room. It's so much more than just a bar. It's become this stage for authenticity. It's a place where you can go and actually talk to the person who brewed your beer, connect with your community, and taste something that was made, right there. It's a totally different experience.
Which brings us all the way to today. And let me tell you, the modern beer world is a wild, wonderful, and sometimes overwhelming place. So how do you navigate it all? Let's talk about how you can make the absolute most of this new beer experience, from pairing it with food to pouring it in a glass.
Okay, one of the absolute best ways to dive into this new world is by pairing beer with food. There are a few basic principles. You can contrast flavors, like a bitter beer cutting through a rich, fatty dish. You can complement them, like a sweet stout with a chocolate dessert. The carbonation is great for cleansing your palate. Seriously, when you get a pairing just right, it can be a total light bulb moment, especially for someone who thinks they don't like beer.
And you know what's really cool? It's not just about inventing new styles. The modern beer geek has also become a kind of historian, reviving these incredible forgotten styles. Take sour ales, for example. These tart, complex beers were basically extinct, and they've been dragged up from the ashes like a phoenix. It's like tasting history. And hey, who says beer even has to stay in a beer glass? It's an amazing ingredient for cocktails. Here's a super simple one you can try at home, the beer fashioned. You just muddle an orange wedge, a cherry, and some sugar, add a bit of a medium ale, mix it up, top it off with more ale, and boom, a totally fresh take on a classic cocktail. So there you have it. From just those 4 simple ingredients, we've gotten this entire universe of flavor and history. From corporate giants and their land yachts to backyard rebels with a dream, the story of beer is constantly evolving. It's still being written, right now. With thousands of breweries and endless styles to explore, who knows what's coming next? So the real question is, what's going to be in your next glass?